if it flares out and gets bigger than a hole for the lid. But other than that, the box and the jar are almost interchangeable. If there's a guy on the internet by the name of Mike Stafford, who I love Mike's work. Admittedly, he buys expensive wood, but he does right by it. And he calls them boxes, but it would probably be very close to a jar. But I love the term lidded jars. So tonight, all the ones that I have here that I've turned recently are small on the bottom and grow here, and we're going to talk about that as we talk about technique. But there's another jar where a fellow by the name of Kurt Fuller started making these a few years ago. He said they didn't originate with him, where the bottom flares out and then it comes back in, so that the bulbous part is down here. So that's what I thought I'd talk about tonight. And like a lot of times when I start with a demo, I have a little trouble getting started. So I think part of the beauty for me, or part of the fun, is you take a block of wood, just an old square block of wood, and you end up with something like this. So as I started out, knowing I was going to do this demo last Saturday, I thought, maybe I ought to make one of these. It's been a while. So I made this one, and I'm fairly pleased with how it turned out. But then I found a piece of cherry, and if I can self-critique this just a tiny bit, it may be a little bit long, but there's a proportion here that is a good place to start, and that is that the diameter, the maximum diameter, is the same measurement as from here to just at the bottom of this lid. Okay, so that's a 1-to-1 ratio. It doesn't look 1-to-1, does it? But it is. I could take my cal. It may have shrunk a little bit. But if I look at it right now, that's 3.74, and that is, it did change a little bit. That's 3.5. But I started with that 1-to-1 measurement. So when I found that piece of cherry, I thought, well, let's play around with this a little bit. So the next one, this started out at 0.75. So this diameter, largest part, measured my round, and then set this again from here to here at 0.75. And then you can kind of see the difference. Okay, so well, I got a piece of cherry left over. Let's do 0.5. So again, from here to here, when we started out, it was 0.5 for 1/2 of the largest diameter of that. And what we want to do tonight, we're going to try to do tonight is we're going to try to make this one 1-to-1 again. Okay, so it should be, the proportion should be a little bit more like this. Now, the point of all of that is back before I started doing those kind of things, I did things like this. Okay, so that's an early attempt, right? But there's no measuring at all. If anything, I may have made the parting line at the golden mean, the 0.618, but I doubt it, and then I had a little problem. Parted it off, and we'll talk about how to avoid that. But I cut a 45-degree bevel on the top to try to make this look a little shorter. It's just it's got to start somewhere. So the point of all of that is you can play with these ratios and think about the designs, and pretty soon you start to understand what makes a better looking box or a better looking jar, and maybe what doesn't make such a great looking box or great looking jar. And I did something similar. There was another piece in this series that is sold already. Just out of curiosity, we'll take a look at this once. That's 2.5 high, and it's 4 in diameter. Okay, and then the parting line, I'm guessing that I probably parted it at 0.618 or thereabouts. Or it might have been the 2/3, 1/3 ratio. And again, parted it just at its maximum diameter, and just it was very subtle back, or it tapers very subtly away from the part line. And this one was just what I had left after on this piece of wood, and I thought I'd been playing with that. Let's just see how small we can go. But again, I tried to use those same dimensions, and these little jars. So I guess what we're going to try to do tonight, without spending too much time talking about it, is we'll get into this and I'll show you how I do some of these things. So there is one, you can pass this around if you want. This is a nice little jar, it has an inlay and a lid. I'm really happy with the way the lid is shaped. I had it all ready. You can see it's got a few coats of varnish on it. And I was walking across the shop and I dropped it. But it's not all bad. It's kind of cool, you can see just how good a job we did. So, as far as hollowing and getting the inside of it sanded, so feel free to look at that. Just be prepared when you take the lid off. I won't pass it around for now. So, okay. So here's a piece of cherry. It's the same piece of cherry that these two guys came out of. The original length on it was about 15 inches. And as you can probably see, this has some taper on it. So I've been looking at that taper and trying to decide to actually turn it around on the lathe earlier. And so we're going to use this as our maximum diameter right here. And that's going to tell us, I did want to say too, the use of this sends a message that's not accurate, okay? It doesn't have to be this precise at all. It's just that this is easy to read and we're going to do a little bit of math, and so you can take the numbers right off of this. You don't have to convert fractions to decimals. I mean, you just read the decimals. But if I start talking now, like this is 2.85, 2.5, no, it's 2.8, 2.85 maybe, but so don't assume that we're talking about this level of precision. It just makes the thing a little bit easier to read. Okay, so if it's 2.8, then the bottom of the lip of this thing going to be about right there, and so I want to have a lip, so that's going to be my part line to start with about right there. So I guess in order to have some chips fly, we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to make the lid out of this later. So when I talk about proportions, I forgot to mention that you can compare the bottom of those two; they're almost identical, and the lids will actually interchange. Okay, so the goal is to have the same size bottom, the same size top, but change the length to see how that affects the looks of the piece. And so to do that, we're going to get close here. And even though I'm measuring this, I'm going to open my calipers up just a little bit, because I want a little bit of room to play with that tenon after we get it made. So here's where we're going to do a little bit of math. There is not, no. This is not a piece of branch wood. It's been in my wood storage room for 8 years that I know of, and I bought it from the family of a wood turner that passed away, so I'm sure it's well aged. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my length. I still have my old numbers in here. 2.8 by 4 times 0.618. Does anybody know why? Do we know why we're using 0.618? It's the golden mean. All right. Okay. So that gives me 1.76 or 1 3/4 inches. And that's where I want, what is the right word, the apex? That's where I want the apex of my curve to be on my jar here. More simply, just going to take a spindle job, and we're going to, for all practical purposes, we're rolling half of the feed. That's the easy one. When I talk about playing with things, one thing that I would play with more if I had the opportunity is I would play with the diameter of the bottom and the top in relationship with the overall diameter of the piece. But that gives me something to do the next time I get to go play in the shop. I haven't found a way out yet. So far, so good. Well, this. So to me, this is the harder of the two curves to get halfway close to right. And I'm not trying to get my final diameter here, I just want to know that I can get to my final diameter when I turn the piece around. So actually, I think I'm gonna just stop with that. And we're gonna refine some of that later on. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move on to hole. Because this surface was cut with the parting tool, we're gonna trim it up here with the little down. We'll begin our hauling with a drill. The reason we're using this particular drill bit is when I made this ash box the other night, I needed the extension, it's the one that was already in the extension. So we want to make that about 2 7/8. At home, I have two things. I have a tailstock that has 10 threads per inch. And it has, that particular tailstock also has a little ruler built into it. So I don't really use the marking method, but I have a mark here at 2 7/8 inches. So it's further than you think. In fact, I do this every time I look at that, I go, boy, that looks too deep. So, you know, what do they say? Measure how many times? Yeah, in fact, we will, yeah, we're not gonna go 2 7/8 because of the point on the Forstner bit, so. Anyway. So we're going to start hollowing just with the tip of our spindle gouge, but then we'll move on to some other tools. I have a couple of homemade tools made out of Allen wrenches that I'm just used to, so they work. And then we'll talk about what happens when we get deeper here in a little bit. So probably this, if you talk about what's the difference between a box and a jar, this is probably the defining thing right here. Because hollowing jars means that you got to hollow. It's more of a hollowing process than it is just scraping the wood out. I think for me, the first rule of hollowing is if it's still working, keep doing it. It's just the way you see the depth of the tool that you have. So don't ask me why it has this goofy crook in it. That's the way I made it, but it works and I'm used to it. But what this will do for me is it lets me hollow under that entrance of the jar. And when I bottom, I don't worry about going too far because when that's bottomed out, I'm not anywhere close to the edge of the jar. So these tools, all of these hollowing tools are just a modified scraper, right? So how do you use a scraper in Inwood? Okay. Okay. All of these hollowing tools are modified scrapers. So how do you use a scraper? How do you approach, especially end grain with the scraper? Right. From kind of a down angle. So you're going to see me raise my tool rest. You're probably going to see the handle higher than the working point of the tool. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the same thing applies. I don't know if we'll get into it or not. I just thought I'd better have it in case we needed it. But this is a John Jordan, medium-sized gooseneck, and the same thing applies. It's a scraper. So, when I'm using it, it may be very subtle. You may not really be able to see it, but this will be trailing into the wood, not digging into the wood. So let's see. I did something I shouldn't have done. I sharpened this and then threw it in the bag to come tonight. So it was working, but it needed to be sharpened. So we'll see if it cuts. Hopefully. So I feel like I've pretty well established my lip there. Forgot to set the air compressor up when I came. We'll take a break here in a minute. I'll do it then. I feel like a guy walking out of the restroom, right? Something on the bottom of my shirt. I've never done that. I've heard of people that have. So I kind of established my undercut there. Oh, this bed of rats. This piece is cracked. It just saw it. So I had looked at it the other day and thought, I'll be able to turn that out, right? We will continue until it blows it. Okay. So I feel like I've established my lip. So here's something that works for me for hollowing. If I can get the duct tape off of the end of it. It's called a what is this thing called? Wood. It's a ring tool, is what it is. Termite, that's it. And it actually has a larger end on it than I wish it did. This is what happens when you use duct tape instead of masking tape. When your duct tape gets warm. Well, this tool works pretty well for me. Again, I'm used to it. This tool, when we engage it into the wood, do not try to ride the bevel with it. Or actually, we're going to have it angled about like that. Okay, so if this is the workpiece, it's going to be angled about like that. And I'll be controlling my cut by just very slightly turning that to change the angle of the wood. So essentially, I guess it becomes a round scraper at that point. But it takes a lot of wood really quickly. I think one way makes these, don't they?
About a 7 o'clock position.
Yeah, I've never been able to get my head in the piece to see. And I've never cut. I mean, the way to answer that would be to cut, just a regular bowl out with it. But I'm guessing that depending on where you are, like what I was trying to do was take the point out of my Forstner bit mark. So at that point, you're going to be cutting here on the end, or just below the middle of the end. But yes, I would agree that probably about 7 to 8 o'clock is what's doing the cutting. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You sharpen that?
Yes, they come with a router bit. They come with a jig, and the jig, this is held in place with a set screw. And you take this out and put it in the jig, tighten the set screw, and then you, in your router table, you put this little stone. So, I mean, it's, and they're hard, they don't need to be sharpened very often, so I've had the tool for 12 years. I haven't had this large bit for that long. I don't think I've ever sharpened this large bit. The small bit I've sharpened one time. But I don't use it every day. It might go for a year without it, but for this kind of stuff, I find it pretty useful. And so the one thing that I believe I forgot to bring tonight, one thing that I know I forgot to bring is my little homemade calipers to measure wall thickness with. And I'm not gonna, I like where that's at, I like the feel of it. We're not gonna worry about it too much. What I do now is, we're not gonna do any sanding tonight, but I think I've told my story here a couple of times about this Benjamin Best, one of those high purveyors of high quality wood turning tools, makes a couple of scrapers. They call them box scrapers, one's square, one's round. I had a square one, and I was thinking, why couldn't I turn that into a negative rate scraper? So Benjamin Best being the price point they are, I ordered the new one. And when the new one came, it was twice as thick as the old one. Cool. So I turned it into a negative rate scraper. And then I got the round one as well and did the same thing there. So again, this has been freshly sharpened, but hopefully it will behave well. And I just like to do this to kind of smooth up the inside of that. Minimize sanding. And just to show you how well a well-sharpened negative rate scraper works, it's making shavings. Usually, in any sort of wood at all, this thing will make shavings, and it wasn't tonight, it was only making dust. When I did that ash box, I was getting chips and shavings to who laid the trunk, and I didn't think it was worth mentioning. But this, I just sharpened, was using it, and look at the nice shavings it's getting. I mean, so it's doing its job, and my crack is getting bigger. Anyway, we can still do the demo, I think, so. Why don't we take a break? I'll get the air compressor set up so I can get this cleaned up a little bit. And then we'll try to reconvene here about 8 o'clock, maybe just a little before. So go do your thing, buy your stuff. The lip of my box here. As we're all aware, the box or the jar does have a crack in it. If I didn't have the crack, I would work on reducing the thickness of this lip. Because of the crack, I'm going to just leave it go. I would also work a little bit on refining this curve. I think again it would be prudent to let it go, but I think I can reverse chuck this and work on refining the bottom a little bit, which is part of the process. So I'm going to use my skew to shape up my my lid here. My cannon, I guess. So what I was looking at there, where I brushed the shavings off the lay of the lathe, and then I was eyeballing to see if my tenon was parallel with my lathe weights. That's almost a tongue twister. If you use these types of calipers, you can also use them quite often. You can just take and you can get a visual check on whether or not the sides of that tenon are square with each other. And if they're square with each other, they're square with the ways of the lathe. You can trust me on that. It's a little better than to do this. But I want to do it. So I use this spindle gouge with a pretty good sized bevel on it. And then with the secondary bevel undercut, so hopefully it doesn't go quite so quickly. Now I use the side of that and trying to refine the shape of this a little bit. And also refine the smoothness. When I'm really on my game at home, I use the steel for this. And not at home. And I don't think I'm that good on it. I don't think I'm that up on my game. Yeah. So This is our off cut, which will become our lid. This is a tear out because of using the parting tool. So I want to get rid of that. We have plenty of depth here. Hopefully we'll get far enough where we'll find that water. This is the box stable. I don't think there's much that's less exciting than watch somebody do a jam to but it's a great technique. It's just nothing really runs truer than a jam chuck. We're going to use our tailstock as long as we can. Using light cuts here. We have a pretty good chuck, a pretty good jam chuck. We want to stay in there, so we're taking our time. Using light cuts, we want a little bit of concave to the surface. So that it's we're actually a little bit smaller already than that one, so we don't need to take any more off. We can always take our straight edge. We actually need to take a little bit out of the middle of that. While we have our straight edge, what we want to do is we want to see if we have a continuous curve here. The straight edge shouldn't lay flat in any one spot. You know, ideally, I mean, I can look at this and I can eyeball it and I see I'm just a little bit high right here. Probably just a little more than I could take out with sandpaper. Yeah, I know, I forgot to put my helmet back on. This is called a 3/4 point tool. The steel on the spindle. Now they say you always want your tool to be at the center line of your lathe. This is one of the exceptions for me personally. If I can find that the skew is effective somewhere in this upper quadrant, probably from 9:30 up to about 11 o'clock, above the center line. We can see what it's doing, I can control better. So it's obviously a demo piece at this point, but we can live with that. At this point, all we do, we're now taking our focus off of the box and working on the lid. Simply going to create the fit of the lid. And we simply do that by easing out the diameter. That sounds nice, but it's really too tight, and these lids have a way of tightening up. I can't tell you the number of times. But I thought I had a really nice fit on the lid, and later I couldn't get it off the box. So that's nice. Okay, so now, if you look at this box, this jar, the shoulder drops away from the tenon. So we want to accommodate that in our lid, and the way we do that is we just take the edge of my spindle gouge, my scraper blade bevel. And you may say, why do you scrape it? Why don't you cut it? It's cleaner if you scrape it. It'll leave fuzzies if you cut it. So now when I put this in there, I don't know if you can see it or not, but you know that bevel fits down over the lip of the jar. So if you look at the lids, you see that they all have a bead right next to the bottom of the lid. When I create that, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a target here. Maybe in a minute you'll see what I use that for. What I'm doing here is we're just simply reducing the lid. So if you demo, let me give you a piece of advice: don't use duct tape. Protect your tool edges. Man, oh man, it was cold out in my shop when I was doing this, but down here, it's got yummy as can be. This is called the detail gouge. It's a spindle gouge with a real shallow flute. What I use to turn the beads on just about everything I make beads on. We're just simply going to start when you turn the bead, we're going to roll that around. Start. Then you do that this way. Go way too high. So now you can see, if we're not there yet, but the bevel and the bead kind of come together. And it's not quite as ugly as it might be right there. We still have some work to do on this. I don't know if we're gonna get there, to be honest. You want to do decorative stuff. Actually, you'd also be sanding the inside of this, sanding the bead at this point, sanding the cove at this point. Although the cove you'll have a second chance on. This is a Wagner tool. You address it at an angle. A nice spiral for you. Trick is always put your spiral in and accent it with accent lines after you got the spiral in. You say, how do you put that spiral in between those lines so nicely? Do the spiral first. I mean, that's not original to me by any means. I can't remember who I learned that from, Nick Cook maybe. That's how close we are to the same size of it. Now all I have to do is not take too much off of it. This is the jam chuck that I used for the middle, no, for the short one. So I had so much mud left. Let's see. Yes, you're not already rocking. Normally, if you do it up against rocks in public, you get lucky once in a while. We'll see. May decide next color here. Again, we'll be sanding at this point. What is what?
What is the speed that you use the light?
I usually take it down to around 500 to 700. Yeah. Yeah, about like sanding. So, you know, to me, it's like I have 3 settings on my lathe: wide open, sanding, and I don't know. There's another one in there somewhere. I don't. No, I said unless I'm cutting threads with which I've demoed here, I usually run on my low speed belt setting, which is 1500, and then I mean, if you just run it over to 1500, it's fast enough for me usually. So I was running about 12 or 1300 on this thing here tonight. There it is. So, you know, here's I guess kind of the thing that we started out with. That one is, you know, from the bottom of the tenon to the table, 50% of the diameter. That one's 75, and that's 100%. So my challenge to you is play with things, you know, change dimensions, change ratios, play with ratios. The golden ratio is great. It helps you know where the apex of that jar should be. Other than that, whatever you want to do. Thanks, appreciate it. wood raffle. Lee, did you get a lot of participation?
I think 4 different people.